Today I want to show you one of my favorite tools, Whiteboard.fi. I think it's just a really fantastic tool that gives me the opportunity to see what my kids are doing in real time. And what I love about it is all the Google task cards that I have that I've purchased or made over the years work so beautifully on Whiteboard.fi for asynchronous learning. So when my kids are at home, then I can still see what they're doing and I can still use some of the great resources that I have from the past. Today, I'm going to demonstrate using these Google Task Cards, which you can purchase in my TPT store. So these are my equivalent fraction task cards from MsCottonsCorner.com on TPT. What you do for Whiteboard.fi is very simple. You get the task card that you want, and if it's a Google task card, all you have to do is go to File, Download as a PNG. And then it will automatically download that and save it wherever your downloads are. With these task cards today, we've done a lot of visual models with my students. So I want to move into some of the more difficult problems. So we're going to warm up with one visual model. Then we're going to try a couple of missing values. So I'm going to download that as a PNG. And I'm going to download slide 12 as a PNG. So I'm just downloading the task cards that if I were in my classroom, these are the ones I'd be putting out that I want them to work on. I also really want to spend a lot of time on number lines. So I'm going to download several number line task cards. So I'm just going to download each one that I want my students to work on as a PNG. So File, Download, PNG. So I'm getting all of these PNGs ready. File, Download, PNG. Okay, that's a pretty good lesson. So now I'm going to go to Google and I'm going to type in whiteboard.fi and the app will open up. Whiteboard.fi is exactly, think of it in just what you would do when you call the kids to the rug and you say, today we're going to do these problems on a whiteboard and you're going to show me your work. That's exactly what Whiteboard.fi is. Now, if you get this resume class like I did, that's because I was using it earlier. Today, I don't want to resume a class. I want to start a new class. So I'm going to log out. You have to first click resume. Sorry about that. And then log out. I was just on this a little while ago. Close the room. You can see that's the work my students were doing with combining sentences this morning, but I want to do this for math. So I'm going to create a new room. Okay, so here I am. I'm going to go down to the main page and create a new room. All right, so to do that, you just say a new class and you type your name, whatever it is your students call you, and then you hit enter. A couple of things about Whiteboard.fi. I'm preparing the lesson that I'm going to be teaching in 45 minutes to my students because Whiteboard.fi does not stay live for that long. Sometimes it'll stay live for about an hour to an hour and a half, but don't prep the lesson the night before. Because it won't stay live. So when you get here, when your students log in, they're going to use this room code Z5H5C, and they're going to get into the same room with you. You do not have your own dedicated space on Whiteboard.fi. You create a new room every time. I'm going to toggle to my whiteboard, and I'm going to go here to image. This is how you use your task cards so beautifully. Click image. And it's going to say, which image do you want? Well, my images are here in my downloads. These are the images that I just downloaded. So there's the first image that I downloaded. I'm going to get my arrow tool and I'm going to resize this because I want my students to have room to do a little bit of work on their whiteboard. So you just click in the corner. Don't resize it too much because what I am going to do is I'm going to flatten it. Flattening it means that it's like gluing it in place and the kids will not be able to move it. Sometimes I flatten some things and not other things. Last week we did some pizza fractions. I flattened the pizza, the basic pizza, but I did not flatten the pizza slices. So they were dragging pizza slices over to play around with equivalent fractions. But in this case, I don't want them to be able to move the task card. So I just go right up here to this little thing. It looks like a stack of papers, and I click right there and it's going to flatten it. The image will get a little bit blurry, so don't make it too small. All right, so that's the first task card I want them to do. I'm going to go ahead and prepare all the task cards. So you go down here to plus, and see, here's a new one. The little I means my students cannot see it. They can't see it until I click there and release the I. Now all I do is go back up to the image. I get the next task card, which I believe was this one. I'm going to make it a little smaller so they have some room to work when I have it where I want it to be. Right, there's the size. Then I'm going to flatten it. So you can see now I have 2 task cards made for my students. Okay, so now you can see down here, I have gone ahead and put 6 task cards into the Whiteboard FI for my students. My students, when I'm ready to have them come on in about half an hour now, will go ahead and go to whiteboard.fi, and they will type in the code Z5H5C. And the first thing they will see is a blank whiteboard. To get these out to my students, I just click this push button. Now, I don't have any students right now, but I would push to students the current page only, and that pushes out the first page for them. Then we can work through it together. They can do it as a warm-up. They can talk about it, and we can work on it together. The most amazing thing about Whiteboard FI is once my students log in, down here, this white box on the bottom will expand, and I will see their whiteboard in real time. I can also download their work as a PDF, and I can see what they're doing right as they're doing it and give them in-the-moment feedback. A couple of limitations of Whiteboard FI. When you download as a PDF, you only get what's exactly on their screen at that moment. So if a student's in the middle of solving a problem, you don't know later on when you're looking at the PDF, did they finish the problem? Were they in the middle of it? Did I download too early? And you also get only one screen at a time. So even though I have 6 task cards, I will not get 6 screens for each child. I will only get the latest one that they did. One of the great things about this is I've got 6 task cards. As I get into the lesson, if I can see that some students are really moving faster, I can go ahead and push out a harder problem to them, and they can move on at their own pace while I help other kids. I had a student last week who only got through 2 task cards, but I was able to give her in-the-moment feedback. The other kids got through 5 or 6. She didn't get very far, but what she did, she really understood. And now as we've gone through and continued learning about equivalent fractions, she's getting better and more confident with it because we were able to spend that time and get that instant feedback right there. Because I can only download 1 slide from each child, I usually just take notes as I go. So just like I would in a classroom, I have my clipboard ready. And as the kids are working, I just jot a few notes down to remind myself of what each kid did. And that helps me plan instruction. Because of privacy concerns, I cannot show you a live Whiteboard FI lesson, but in my blog post, I will take some screenshots and blur out the names so you can see more about what it looks like. So check out the video and then hop over to MissCottonsCorner.com. Check out the blog post for some more screenshots. If you like these task cards, again, there are 50 task cards in this resource. You can get them both printable and Google Slides. So that's all in one resource at Miss Cotton's Corner on TPT. I hope this was helpful. Thanks for watching and happy teaching.